Hello and welcome back to the Scoop with Coop. I'm of course Coop, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how we can fix the truly broken and down and out Philadelphia Eagles. As the Philadelphia Eagles, they are just an awful team, right? They're going to be picking with the number 1 overall pick, and they are just truly a disgusting excuse of a football team. Okay, I may have exaggerated a little bit there, as this Eagles team is 8-4. And they have the best red zone efficiency rate of any team in the NFL. But the one thing that I didn't really exaggerate on is just how disgusting this team can look at points. And that much is true. As this Philadelphia Eagles team has just not looked like their Super Bowl champion caliber team that they are. Because last year, right, they won the Super Bowl. And I think what's even crazier than that was they didn't lose a game that Jalen Hurts started and finished since week 4. Look, I mean, just put that into perspective. They played a full regular season of football, I think. And it would be 16 weeks. They played almost a full season of football without losing when Jalen Hurts started and finished. That is crazy. And so whenever you bring back that team, essentially the same team, and you can bring almost all of those players back with the same head coach, with the same defensive coordinator, you think, easy. They can just run it back. Now, the one coach that I didn't mention was the offensive coordinator. As Kellen Moore, as people expected, became a head coach, and he went to the New Orleans Saints. And so that meant that who's going to meet that task? Who's going to keep the Philadelphia Eagles competitive and keep them winning games? And the man that was tasked with that was Kevin Patullo. And when you have a guy like Kevin Patullo, he's been with the organization since 2021, who has that continuity with Jalen Hurts, who has the continuity with everyone on that roster, because he was there last year as their pass game coordinator, and I believe he was in another, I think offensive quality control assistant is what his title was, I believe. And so you have someone who is that important to the organization, and you can just promote him up. Great. Why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you have to keep players from learning an entirely new playbook? Why wouldn't you have to keep players from getting into the, oh, how are you doing, man? What's up? How you doing? Preventing players from having to do that. But I think that whenever you have, a new coordinator, you have to adjust your expectations properly. And I think that was something that myself and a lot of Eagles fans did not take into account. Because my perspective going into the season was, you have someone who, has been a part of the organization, he knows what they do well, and he knows what they don't do so well. And whenever he was there whenever the team went from 10-1 to 11-6. He was also there when the team went from 2-2 to winning the Super Bowl. So, he knows what works and he knows what doesn't. So I thought that, maybe that could help. But with Kevin Patullo, the big thing with him is, or at least the most underappreciated and least talked about aspect of Kevin Patullo is he was in the coach's box for the entire time that he was with the Eagles since 2021 up until he became the coordinator. He's been in the coach's box. So he's been up, he's been looking down at the players, he's been seeing what's going on from there. This season, he's been on the field, he's been on the turf, and he has been with the players. He can hear the frustrations from the fans, he can hear the frustrations from the players, he has players in his ear constantly, I'm sure. So, I think that is a big change that he has not really adapted to so great. And I also think that he is just not adapted great when calling plays. Because this Eagles team is very, very predictable whenever they're on offense. It's bad whenever you have a former safety who is, the Eagles love as a player, or at least all the players there love him, in C.J. Gardner-Johnson, when he's, being talked to with franchise legend LaShawn McCoy and someone, Manuel Acho, who was on the Eagles summer squad, and he's winking whenever they ask him, hey, how predictable is the offense? And he's going, that's a problem. That is a problem that players are calling out your offense, and not much is really seeming to change. And I think looking forward for this Eagles team, what do? I mean, I think there are three main approaches that you can take. The first of which, Kevin, gone. Bye-bye. Go over there. We got it. And I think that is probably the worst one that you can take. And I know that Kevin Patullo has not been good. I know he's not even been average. I will attest, he's probably been one of the top 7 worst offensive coordinators in the NFL. And do you think you want to keep him around with this team that has the ability to win a Super Bowl? Yes. Because I don't believe that at this point in the season, you're going to get someone who's going to save the offense and he's going to be walking through those doors. I don't think that person exists. Because you're not going to bring in a new offensive coordinator whenever you've played 12 games. You're just not. And I think that it's totally unrealistic for Eagles fans to expect him to be fired completely and then bring in a new offensive coordinator or even promote someone, because then it'd be like, you've already played 12 games, let him finish out the season. I mean, to me, that just seems ridiculous. And, I have called for Kevin Patullo's job. I will attest to that. Because, again, he's not done a good job. And especially in the NFL, whenever you have these expectations, when you're taking over the literal reigning Super Bowl champions, you have expectations to at least make a deep playoff push and look pretty while doing it. And the Eagles haven't. And so I think that there is a definite understanding, in my perspective, as to why you would want him fired. But, and I've gone over this a little bit, but no one's going to be walking through those doors. I mean, are you just going to call up Brian Dable and say, hey, come coach this offense? I mean, are you going to say, hey, Nick Sirianni, you know what? I know that literally in your first year you gave up calling plays because you weren't successful with it. You can call plays for us, right? Or are you going to say, you know what? Scott Loeffler, the QB coach, I know you got fired from Bowling Green, and I know that you don't exactly have the greatest possible track record. How about you call plays? I mean, it's like, I don't understand how that would benefit the Eagles. I really don't. So that kind of takes us into the second option, which is you do the soft demote, or not soft, you demote him. You say, you know what? You're not fired. You can be with the team, but you're not going to call plays anymore. We're going to give those responsibilities over to Nick Sirianni, Scott Loeffler. And I mentioned this part a little bit in the previous solution. But, again, I don't think that is a great solution because, what? You're going to make these players have to adjust because even the way that they call things is different, very different from coordinator to coordinator. Because, you have some of them, like if you have a guy like Sean McVay, where he's, like, talking to the quarterback because there's clips online where it's just him saying, all right, Matthew, you're going to want to look out for that cloud safety they're rotating in. And it's like, okay, chill, coach, you got this. And then you also have one saying, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run trips F, Y motion, naked waggle on 2, or just something where it's just like very... So, I mean, I don't know how Kevin Patullo calls plays, but I'm sure that is a factor being like, okay, all right, how is this different? How, get the play out, man. Get the play out. So I'm sure that plays a factor in knowing how to adjust with different coordinators and having them in your ear. And is that something you really want to learn being done with 12 games of the season? I mean, I don't think that's really great. And then also, is that really going to be much of a change? If they're on the coaching staff, are they just magically going to say, Kevin, you like running inside zone? Nick, I got it. We're running outside zone 42 times next game. Like, I don't think that's going to be a realistic thing. So, I mean, I don't understand why you would want to fire him or even demote him at this point. And that takes us into the third and, in my opinion, best solution. And this is the smallest change that you can make. And that is moving Kevin Patullo up into the coach's box where he was. Because I think that not only do you not have to have your players learn a new thing, but it might be better for him, where he can be around more of his offensive guys, he can be more focused and more locked in, and he can see what type of coverage the defense is on or is in, and you can see what personnel they're in. Like if they are in a, say they're in a heavy set, all right, hey, blitz protect blitz or whatever, you can know that. And I think that is the best overall thing for this team, because when you look and you have this great defense, you have a top 5 defense in the NFL. If your offense can be pretty good, you can make a deep playoff run. And I know that the Eagles can do that. It's just about whether or not they can execute. And taking that into execution, I think since since the bye week, Jalen Hurts has not played as well as he is perfectly capable of playing. Because when looking at Jalen Hurts and looking at him, he has not played the caliber that he is capable of. Because looking at his last 3 games, he's thrown a total of 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, and he has multiple fumbles in that stretch. That is just not acceptable as a quarterback. You have multiple turnovers. You're not going to win doing that. Now, I will also say, some of these games have not been in the greatest of weather. The Detroit game, it was super windy. The Chicago game, super windy. So when 2 out of your last 3 games are very windy and they're outdoors, and you can put up a total of 6 touchdowns in that 3-game stretch, that's not bad. That's not like, shattering the world, but it's pretty good. Now, I do think that Jalen Hurts has been off, and I think that his completion percentage shows that. When you have 2 games under 60% completion percentage in the last 3, that is not conducive to winning, and especially with this Eagles team where early on in the season, they were winning just by efficiency, where it's like, as soon as we get in the red zone, we're not going to mess up, and we're going to get those plays that result in touchdowns. And that didn't show up in that Dallas game. They fumbled away a possession when they were at the 30, and then also fumbled the ball at the literal 5-yard line. But, whatever. And then, whenever you have those, this poor offense, and in my opinion, below-average quarterback play, because that is what Jalen Hurts has played like. He's played like a below-average quarterback. Now, I do think he is better than that, and I think his quarterback rating kind of shows this kind of downturn. Because before the Green Bay game, his quarterback rating, and that's, adjusted QBR, went from 90, 43, 67, 55, 57, and then 25. The 57 and 25, they lost both of those games. And then he responded with 94, 63, and then this is where we get into the ugly numbers. 38, 26, 53, and 19. That is not good at all. That is below average. I mean, that is not in J.J. McCarthy territory, but that's getting into worse than Kyler Murray territory. So whenever you have that, and, you're fumbling the ball a bit more and you're turning the ball over more, not great. And I think that Jalen Hurts needs to step up especially and kind of take control, because this is his team. This is the Super Bowl MVP. This is the face of the franchise. This is the man who was given the $250 million plus extension. And so it is on him to step up. But for the players, I don't think it is just Jalen Hurts. Because contrary to popular belief, football is a team sport. It is the ultimate team sport. And this Eagles team last year was a true powerhouse running the ball. This year they are not. Because they as a team average 4 yards per carry, with only a total of 12 touchdowns in 12 games. And whenever you're this Eagles team, where you have, Jalen Hurts, who I believe the last time he didn't have 10 rushing touchdowns in a season, it was during the pandemic. And you also have Saquon Barkley. I feel like you should be able to just score touchdowns at will. But this offensive line has not been good. This offensive line has been poor. And that is also a factor of injuries. Because whenever you have the left guard, where they love running to, and especially on the tush pushes, which we'll get there, especially on the runs, where when you go to the left a ton, and you have Landon Dickerson, who's dealing with knee and ankle injuries, that majorly prohibits his mobility and his ability to get up into the second level and his ability to drive forward. And then if you shift one position over to the right, the center, Cam Jurgens, had a back injury, which I don't know if anyone's ever woken up with a bad back. I don't think your thought is, ooh, you know what? Let's go block a 340-pound man. Like, no one thinks of that. And so obviously that impacts your overall ability to just not only be, stable, but also to anchor down and drive. And so whenever you have 2 of your positions on the offensive line, and where you run the ball the most, not being at 100%, let's also add in the best offensive lineman that the Eagles have had in franchise history. And yes, I did say that. Bring all of the Jason Kelce smoke my way. He's the best center in the NFL, in NFL history. But Lane Johnson is so much better than him. But whenever you have the Lane Johnson, who is just a pillar of Eagles football, where anytime they run his way, he will dominate, and he will clear and pave the lane. But whenever he's able to create massive running rooms for these running backs to go through, it's easy. He's been in and out of the lineup with multiple injuries. And so whenever you have all these injuries pile up and you know guys aren't playing 100%, that takes a factor. But also the design of some of these runs is not great. And this also falls back on Kevin Petula, where it's, can we please stop running inside zone? And I know I've mentioned this in previous videos, but still hasn't changed a ton. They're running inside zone a ton. They're running duo a ton. They're going through the A-gap a ton, which, please change that, because it's just got to be so demoralizing as a player, and you hear, all right, we're going into duo out of trips, all right, and it's like, yeah, we're going duo. All right, oh, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. All right, bring it in. Duo again. Okay. Oh, loss of 1. All right, so now it's 3rd and long, and that adds to why their 3rd and long efficiency is, and their third down efficiency is so poor, because they're not efficient on these 2 downs whenever they run the ball. So I think the running game is not successful, and I think that you need to completely overhaul how you do that. And I think one of the ways you do that is give Tank Bigsby more carries. He is the most efficient running back on the team, and he has 9 yards of carry. Now, do I think that he's this freak of nature? No, because if he was, Saquon would be on the bench. But whenever you have someone who's capable and can give Saquon Barkley a breather, please do it. Because Saquon is a great player, and just like the Eagles did last year, they took him out for a game so he could get fully loaded up and prepared for the playoffs, and he was really good in those playoffs. So if you can do that and you can give Bigsby more of a role in the offense, that is very conducive to success. So I think that the solutions are in the building, and there are solutions. It's just about whether or not they can fully put that together and get back to being this buzzsaw of a team. But this is the Scoop with Coop. I don't have a whole lot more to say on this because we're already, 17 minutes into fixing my favorite team's offense. But, do you have any thoughts? Do you think I'm wrong? Or anything else? Let me know in the comments below. This is the Scoop with Coop. Until next time.